building the business turns you into a different kind of human being.
Realize that failure is a part of the journey.
I think there's hope out there for all of us.
They say procrastination be the assassination of destinations. That's why we out here grinding with no association. With haters and them other crabs trying to put us down. Pest badges in the house, boy, don't clown. Just keep your eyes on the prize, ain't no giving up. You can do whatever you dream of. Just keep your eyes on the prize, ain't no giving up.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Pest Control Millionaire. Really looking forward to this one. We connected online a couple weeks back. We've been setting this up for a while. And I got Chase Goodeill on the podcast today. He owns a pretty large, successful company. It's a pest control consultant. And I'm just really looking forward to picking your brain. I know you have a lot going on. We talked for like 20 minutes before the podcast. I'm like, this is going to be a good one. So just want to say thanks for being on the show and thanks for your time. And let's roll. Looking back, say when you were like 16, 17 years old, you and I are in high school. Who was Chase in high school?
Man, that's a great question. I was very motivated, driven for success. I wanted to be a high earner at a young age. It was kind of a chip on my shoulder. My dad and grandpa were in pest control, and so I saw some success. But I, was definitely looking to make a path for myself, to have something that I could build with my family and the pest control industry, kind of set that up for me. But I had a chip on my shoulder in a good way. And I think when you see young people with a chip on their shoulder, the first thing you think of is, maybe that's not good. But if you have, sometimes it's just raw ambition too. But that chip on your shoulder, man, that can really, really set you off and get you going down a good path at a young age.
Where was the chip from?
It's a great question. I feel like that's just the way I came out of the womb. I just wanted to be successful. I wanted to win at life. I wanted to make a name for myself. I wanted more than the average person, I think. And that was clear. I got married to my high school sweetheart, dove into business right away. I was doing door-to-door mowing lawns at 12 years old, 13, 14. Had 4 or 5 of my friends mowing the lawns while I was out putting on more accounts for them to mow. Eventually failed because we had too many lawns to mow and not enough people to mow them. But that's kind of who I was, and very competitive, and wanted a lot out of life.
Yeah, you probably don't know this, but I came from the lawn care world too. So been there, done all that. Built a business there, sold that in 2021. So I've done a lot of lawn care side of the world too. You said you were super competitive. Were you in sports in high school?
Yeah, so basketball was my main sport. I did golf too there at the end. My junior year, I picked up golf. But basketball was my main one. I was the leading scorer on my high school basketball team my junior and senior year. We had won 25, 30 games each year, so it was a lot of fun. The second best, well, he was probably better than me. He went on and had a really good college basketball career. My brother-in-law, he was on my basketball team. My now brother-in-law, he's 6'8", was really, really good, went on to play at 2 different colleges. But him and I were kind of like the 1-2 punch. He's now a business partner of mine in 2 of my 4 branches.
Awesome. So that's obviously your wife's brother.
Correct, yep.
You met in high school.
Yeah, well, funny story. He was dating my sister before I started dating his sister. And then it started to be like, what's going on here?
Did he marry your sister?
He did not. He dated her on and off for a minute. That didn't work out, but yeah, it was like I was best friends with him, and then all of a sudden I was dating his sister, and now our relationship, as you can imagine, suffered quite a bit through that.
Yeah, I bet. So then, right from high school, you're already basically in pest control this time. You're already running routes with your dad, grandpa. Talk us through that.
Yeah, so my dad and grandpa had a company in the 90s. They built it up. They were in Rockford, Illinois. They had a branch in Iowa as well. My grandpa flew planes, and he would fly my dad to Iowa to do the route, and then fly him back to Illinois. They had 10 or 12 employees. It was pretty lucrative. They ended up selling because my dad and grandpa they couldn't get along. It didn't work, and then Terminex bought them. my dad went to work for Terminix, had a non-compete, then went to work and started Pest Control Consultants when I was 10 or 12. I don't know the exact age, but so I always had a job. I was mowing the lawns and doing that. I was making a lot of money doing that, but my dad needed help, being that he just started this pest control thing, and he knew what it took to be successful because he had a successful business. And I would work with him, spraying the outside of homes while he would do the inside. Like I said, this would have been early 2000s, and where indoor-outdoor quarterlies were pretty normal. And so I did that, and eventually I turned 16 and would run 12 to 14 accounts during the summer, Monday through Friday. Fall would start. I didn't play football, so I would still work in the fall. I would run 6 to 8 accounts after school at 16. And did that until winter. And then, I always had money in my pocket. I always had enough money to buy my girlfriend nice gifts, to buy the new TVs, the Xbox, all the cool things that I think some of my friends were like, geez, what's that like, right? Which was nice. I had that opportunity to work at a young age.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then walk us through the transition of Terminix. I know you mentioned your dad selling the company. Terminix came in, then he kind of worked for them. Walk us through that. What was that phase of life like in business?
Well, it was tough because as a young boy, 8, 9, 10 years old, you have your dad and grandpa that own this pest control company, and it was really it seemed like it was a large company. They had a big office and a bunch of trucks, and my grandpa had a semi company as well, and had 4 or 5 semis doing that thing. They flew airplanes. It was like life was good, and then they sold the pest control thing. And I didn't quite understand why at a young age. I was like, hey, why are we selling our family business? They had an enterprise. Their entity was called Goodeill Enterprise. So I thought that was really cool to have an enterprise with your last name tied to it. The business name was called Economy Pest Control. But I know my dad went to work for Terminix. My grandpa went down to Florida, retired essentially. And, my dad did not like that transition. Terminix, they did the best they could with him. But essentially my dad was managing the customer list that was sold over to Terminix. And the customers were wondering what happened as well. Like, why did you guys sell? What's going on? We liked it a lot better when you and your dad were running the business. And so eventually my dad started doing a few accounts under the table there at the very end of his non-compete, getting ready to launch his business again, knowing that he could get most of those customers back in that service area because of the fact that they just didn't care for how Terminix did business. And so when he started, as soon as the non-compete was up, he started his business, Pest Control Consultants, and picked up a lot of his customers again, and just starting over on his own, on his terms, without his dad with him.
Hold up, quick pause. If you're on a pest control company or fertilization weed control company, you're not in our Facebook group, you're choosing the harder path. Every operator that's in there is skipping years of mistakes because people are actually sharing what's working right now. So stop trying to brute force your way through growth alone. Search Pest Control Millionaires on Facebook or click the link below. And now let's get back to it. So back up a little bit. Did you ever ask them why they sold? Was it your dad or your grandpa just ready to retire?
Yeah, I did. So at the time, obviously, I wasn't like, hey, what's going on? Financial things going on. Now my grandpa had this trucking company that was kind of growing pretty rapidly with semis back in the late 90s. And I think how my dad worded it, my grandpa was getting greedy. He was borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, so he was taking some of the money out of the pest control business, buying more semis and things like that. And so that was a problem. My dad and him weren't necessarily getting along. My dad was doing a lot of the work. My grandpa was already snowbirding down south and kind of hands off the business. So my dad felt entitled to more money, and my grandpa, I think, didn't want to give him that. And so with the semi business ultimately failed. And so they had to recoup some cash, which is why the exit was necessary to kind of handle that. And then, my grandpa, felt like my grandpa was one of those guys where he was in tons of different industries. He was an entrepreneur for sure, but he would be in something for 4 or 5 years and then get bored and want to go over here for 4 or 5 years and then get bored and then want to go over here, Which
we see all the time, right? It's a normal thing for entrepreneurs, but you just got to stay focused.
He struggled with the focus piece, but he was really good at sales. He could really build things quickly, and I give him a lot of credit for that. But if he would have just stayed with pest control, things, I would have, stepped into something far bigger and greater than what I did, but obviously the life lessons would have been different. So I'm grateful for those things too.
You also mentioned airplanes. Did either of them own an airplane, or were they just flying airplanes?
Yeah, my grandpa owned an airplane. He flew all the time. Like I mentioned, he was flying my dad to Iowa to do routes because they acquired a pest control company in Keokuk, Iowa, which is a small little town, and so they wanted to build that out. They never built it out, but they were doing those things. My grandpa told me that he loved flying, but he got it up in the air into a storm one day, and the plane, he was nervous of landing. He couldn't see anything. He ended up landing in a cornfield. He landed safely, but he sold his plane the next day.
Gotcha.
And so, interestingly enough, that was his story. Being that we're in 4 or 5 branches now all over the Midwest, we keep talking about getting a plane or a helicopter so we can move quickly to our branches if need be. Being that it's in the bloodline.
The reason that I ask is we're in a very similar situation, and I'm actually getting my pilot's license right now. I've been working on it for a couple of months. So, for the same exact reason, like you go anywhere, it takes you a day to drive there, then you spend a day or two there, and you got to drive back, and so just to go visit any office is a 3 day project, and I'm just over it. I'm like, I just need to get there faster. I need to see the locations more often, and that's what I decided to do.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's exactly what we're thinking about. One of my other partners, actually my brother-in-law, his grandparents flew as well. So him and I are both like, do we want to get a plane, get our private pilot's license, fly ourselves, or do we want to get a pilot to fly for us and have that?
Been through those same conversations. I'm like, I just want to learn how to do it first. I think it's just a thing. Like, I just want to learn. I love learning in general, and it's just something totally new that I've never done before. And my grandpa was a pilot too, so it's kind of similar story.
It was a thing back then for some of those guys back in the 80s.
My grandpa was an entrepreneur, and he had a construction company, so he was all over the place too, and that's what he used it for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a good write-off, no doubt.
Yeah. So you come into the business, you're as a technician, or I think you said you started as a technician. Your dad started this new company, and then walk us through this phase of your life.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I made a lot of money during the summertime, just servicing accounts, and I was dating, my wife at the time, my junior year in high school, and it was like, do I go play college basketball or do I jump into this family business? Do I go off to college or do I stay put helping my dad? My dad needed help. I was his first employee. He was still working a second job until he got that business up and going. So I kind of felt obligated to stay back from college, or at least going away to a university. Basketball, I was really good at basketball, but getting married as well. I graduated high school in May of 2006, and I got married in August of 2006.
What year did your dad start? It must have been like 04, 05 then?
03, I believe. It's late summer of 03. So he had a couple years. When I was working with my dad, I think he probably was doing like 10 or 12 grand a year. Again, it was part-time. He had another job, was doing that. Maybe it was $20,000. It wasn't much. It was more summer pest control. He didn't do much in the winter, but he was waiting to get it built up with enough subscription-based services to leave his other job. So I kind of knew I had to, I wanted to help my dad out. I knew there was opportunity to be use pest control as a vehicle to make money, because I saw that with my grandpa and him. And so I decided to go to a local college. I married my wife, and I went to work full-time with just me and my dad, servicing accounts, building it up. Focused on really just providing good service and learning the industry at that time. We were growing slowly, but we never really had enough money. Winter got real lean. We struggled during the winter months. My wife and I struggled financially. She was in college too. She was pursuing she's a dental hygienist. Now I joke she's a retired dental hygienist. She stayed home with the kids, which is a full-time job in itself.
Absolutely.
But that's what it was. It was a grind. It was a grind in my early 20s and really still trying to figure out what I wanted. Like I said, I saw opportunities in pest control. My dad and I want to go big and go fast. He always would tell me not to put the hog in front of the pig and focus on customer care versus acquiring a bunch of customers. And it got to a point where it was like, okay, I need to see a return on investment. I want to grow this thing, or I'm going to maybe go out and do something else. So, at that time I was thinking about becoming a high school basketball coach, because I did coach high school basketball for 15 years. That was perfect in the Chicagoland. I would do pest control in the summer. I got my IHSA certificate, would go coach in the winter. I got plugged in with some AAU circuits, plugged in at some, my high school that I graduated from. So I had some opportunities, and I was making money coaching. I was really good at coaching. That was like my purpose in my early 20s, because if I'm being honest, servicing accounts, doing all that, that wasn't necessarily something that gave me a lot of joy. It was more like I needed money to pay rent and to buy a house. But when my dad moved me out of service and put me into sales, probably around, mid 20s, I don't know the exact age, but, things started changing for us, me and my dad, drastically. And I asked my dad, I go, what do you want? How do I sell pest control, Dad? Is there a roadmap? Can you teach me? And he basically gave me the Jordan Belfort line, pick up the phone and start dialing. And I asked him when was a good time to start. And he said, there's no greater time to start than right now. And I'll never forget that, at 22, 23, just pick up the phone, start dialing, do it right now. And he didn't give me a script. He didn't give me a roadmap. And I just started calling on businesses that we didn't have, wondering, if I could meet with them to show them what our company can do in a very small niche market. And that's how it all started to evolve for us and our company.
That's awesome. Really cool. Did you end up taking any sales courses? Cause I know your sales positions evolve big time. We'll get there, but just right at first, you're just picking up the phone, cold calling, like yellow books. Is that what you're doing, like back in the day?
Yeah, that's what he told me to do. Start finding businesses. What I did is I had no training really at all. The only thing I was ambitious, so I read a lot of books. So I started reading books about selling, listening to podcasts. At the time, Grant Cardone had a podcast called The Young Hustlers, which was really good. I would say, Grant Cardone was my mentor in a sense where I listened to him all day long, every day.
Yeah, I went through Cardone, you, and everything myself.
Yeah,
back in the day. Yeah,
this was early on before Cardone even existed. I mean, he was out there trying to build his brand. The Psychology of Selling by, I think, Brian Tracy was another book.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah.
Sell or Be Sold. If you're not first, you're last. The 10X Rule. Those books helped me. But what I did is I would go out, I would start my day in the morning early, get my cup of coffee. And this was when we had a technician that was doing the routes, a couple techs, maybe just me and my dad. And I would stop into all the businesses within our service area and ask them about pest control and try to figure out who is the contact here, who is the decision maker. And I would trade. Ultimately, you got to get past a gatekeeper or two. But I would trade their card for my card, and I would come back. I would do this for 8 hours. I'd come back to the office at 4 or 5 o'clock, and I'd have 30 business cards with contacts on them. And so the next day I would call all of those contacts about trying to get an appointment with them. I would put them, determine who are they currently using for their pest control? When does that contract expire? Is there a pain point there that maybe they want to improve their service or they don't have loyalty? And I would essentially drive these contacts to a yes or a no through follow-up, kind of what Grant Cardone teaches, right? I'm not a polished salesperson, but I'm persistent and I will push you. And I'm not going to push you in a way where you're going to feel uncomfortable, but I'm going to push you to a yes or a no. And that's what I did. And luckily for me, there was a lot of opportunities for improvement within that space at that time. And so what I mean by that, a lot of the school districts had problems with Oriental roaches, but yet they had a contract with Orkin. Why isn't Orkin solving the Oriental roach problem? Here I am, this young kid that comes up in the pest control space that's local, that's pitching that, like, we can do better, give us a shot. We support the local community here. And it just started opening up doors, and we started switching over Orkin deals, Terminex deals, even a lot of our local competitors that were dropping the ball with their technicians. And we just started picking up a lot of contracts at that time. That's
awesome. So then how many years into the business is this then? Like 3, 4, 5? Yeah,
probably 5. I was in the service. I was servicing accounts for at least 3 summers full time. Doing my coaching, my basketball. I would still work. Even in the winter, I'd do my 6 to 7 accounts. I'd go to basketball practice, right? My wife and I started having kids really young too. 2 years into our marriage, we had our first son, which I want to give him a shout out. It's his 17th birthday today.
Hey, happy birthday. What's his name?
Eli,
happy birthday. That's awesome. How many kids you got?
So I have 3 kids. Yep, Eli's my oldest. I have a 17, a 15, and a 12-year-old. She'll be 13 in April. So 2 boys and a girl.
Nice. I got all girls.
Okay, that's cool too.
3. Got 3 girls. They're 6. Well, one's gonna be 16 in a month, and then 10 and 7.
Yeah, girl dad. That's awesome.
Girl dad. Yeah. They keep me busy for sure. But my oldest is in wrestling. She's a stud. She's fun to watch. Yeah.
I'm sure they test your patience, right? With all the 4 girls in the house with your wife.
They're so good. Like, knock on wood, they're such good kids. Like, they just, Yeah, I have zero issues yet. My oldest is super calm, cool, collective. She's chill like her mom. My middle child, she's a wild one. She's a lot like myself. So she'll probably be the one to test my patience. Just not yet. She's only 10.
Yeah.
So
Would any of the kids get into the family business? I mean, obviously that's a whole other conversation, but I'm wondering if you guys are talking about that.
My oldest wants to go be a doctor. So she has no interest yet. I could see my middle child though, she probably is steering towards that direction for sure. We've talked about it a little bit, but she's so young. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, my oldest, she wants to just go be a doctor, and said if you want to go to school, you got to go to school for something that is worth your time. Like I'm totally against school, but not a fan of school either. But if she wants to go be a doctor, then I'll let her go be a doctor. And she wants to go to college and wrestle, so I'm sure she'll get some. Since she's ranked 4th in the state, I think right now, so she's pretty good. She's only a sophomore, so I'm sure she'll get a lot of opportunities to go to college for free. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm like-minded in that. If you're going to use school, use it to advance. Don't do stupid. That's going to just waste your time. Especially,
I went to school for 2 years. It was pointless, and I have so many friends that I went to school. They had their degrees, and they don't use them at all, or they couldn't even find a job doing it. So.
Yeah, it's like go to school to network to some extent.
For sure.
If you're going to do that, build connections that are going to give you opportunities maybe to advance.
Yeah, I agree. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off asking about your kids, but just curious. But happy birthday. That's super awesome. Is he involved at all?
Yeah, so he worked as a mosquito tech this last summer, made about $12,000. He also knocked doors after his routes. He knows, being my son, that if he wants to advance, he's going to have to master the art of sales. He wants to open his own branch at some point. He has the same ambition and the same chip on his shoulder that I did as a young kid, and he reminds me a lot of myself. And so he was knocking doors. He sold about 25 quarterlies on the doors in our hometown. We paid him, I think, 25% commission on those deals. So he loved when he sold an account because he'd make $160, but it would take him all day at 16 an hour doing mosquito work to make that. We learned right away, you want to advance quickly. There's a fast lane and there's a slow lane in entrepreneurship and business. And so now we're talking about having him. I think he's going to come knock in our, as I mentioned earlier, before we started recording, we're opening a new branch. And I think at late April, early May, when we start, there's a few of us that are going to be knocking for the first few weeks. My son and I are going to, I think, go together. And he's going to get that experience of knocking doors with us, for a week or so, to put on those first few hundred accounts of this new branch.
Yeah, my stepson, he's 20, going to be 21 in July. Went to college for a couple of years, played baseball, and now he's out knocking doors for us too. So last year was his first summer. He didn't start till May. I think he ended up selling like 50,000 in rev. Just he's getting decent, but by the end of this year, I know he's gonna be really good. They're out knocking doors today, so getting his feet wet for sure. So that's our ultimate goal with him too. Is he wants to open up a branch or two in the future. So he's young enough, but like I told him, you got to master the skill of sales first. You can teach everything else after that, and sales can be taught. It's a lot of it's just in your own head, at first.
Yeah, I always tell everybody, like my partners, I'm like, you got to sales before scale. You're never going to be able to scale a company if you don't know how to sell a service. And you can't have a bunch of people working for you if you don't have customers. So I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, we're on a similar path, which is really cool. Like I coach our Gladstone, our high school wrestling team for 5 years too. So again, we definitely cut the cloth similar on our upcoming. It's pretty cool. So you're working at the company for like 5 years, 4 years, we're moving to sales role. And then how does that evolve from there? And then do you end up getting equity at some point? Did you buy your dad out? Is your dad still partner?
So that's exactly what happened. I started selling accounts, never took a commission. My dad kind of preached to me, hey, we're going to build this thing up. You're going to get your opportunity at some point. What he did do, though, is give me sweat equity, during time. So he ended up giving me 30% of our company, and we became partners. He was 70, I was 30. And so it was like, hey, you're not going to see the money right now, but down the road, you may see a return, based on that. So I realized, okay, that I felt blessed, but I wanted to double down. I went back into, I started selling even more aggressively. It got to a point where I had to move because I had sold everybody in my small town that our original small service area. Because I knew the people that you were either going to buy from me or I knew exactly why you were not going to buy from me. And that's what it came down to. And so I did move. I moved closer to the Chicagoland where I knew I needed a whole nother pipeline, a whole nother community to kind of get to know who's who, join clubs like Rotary Club and Chambers and shake some hands with people. And that's what I did. And I remember a couple things specifically during that time where I was really selling aggressively. And one of them was I was cold calling the school district, and I was like, I told my wife, if we get the school district account, we're probably going to have to move there. There's 16, 17 buildings in this district. We don't have a technician in this area. I'm going to have to go up and service them. Maybe it would make sense for me to start shaking hands with people and growing our business through networking. And so sure enough, they had Plunkett's, and they switched to our service. Plunkett's had just acquired a company in this new market, and they were dropping the ball too. They had a really bad technician at the time. And so I got this big school district on a cold call. So then I called the neighboring district, which was 10 miles down the road, which was another 15 to 20 buildings. And I told my wife, I said, if we get this district, we're moving. And I cold called them. They took the appointment with me. I did a few follow-up visits, and we ended up getting this contract too. So at this point, we're like, all right, we're selling our house. We're moving out east towards the Chicagoland to expand our business. And my first week downtown in this town where I live, which is I live, like I mentioned, an hour west of Chicago. I walked all the businesses, all the bars and restaurants downtown on our main street. And I walked in, and I'll never forget this. I took pictures and showed it to everyone. My dad was so proud of myself. I walked in, and everybody had Plunkett's, because Plunkett's bought the local vendor and the local company there. And I switched every business in downtown to my service, and I had a paper list full of contracts, 8 to 10 contracts, several of them with a check that paid me for the year, that I brought back to our corporate office where my dad was at and said, I think this new market's going to be really good for us. Look at all these contracts. I just flipped 10 people from Plunkett's on a monthly service to now our monthly service. And so I knew right then and there the community was going to be warm. It was the right place, right time. I think God was opening some doors for us. I mean, again, the majority of the commercial accounts in my town were not satisfied with Plunkett's. They all wanted that small hometown personal touch. And here I am in this new market. That's exactly what we were. And so it just started snowballing, and we started growing, and it was a lot of fun, to be honest.
That's really cool. So then you ended up getting 30% of the company. Your dad was 70 at the time? 30, you were 30?
He was 70. I was 30. We kept doing that whole thing. We just kept hiring more technicians. My dad and I eventually found an acquisition that was back in where I grew up. It was our local competitor that was just the town over, and they had about $450K worth of recurring revenue. They had a 6-figure contract, they had 89 gas stations on a monthly service. Like $40 a month, right? So you do the math. It was, and now they have like 100. We have that contract now, but it's over 100 and something stores. But they were so loyal to the owner that we knew the only way we would get that account is if we acquired their business. And these commercial accounts, as you know, are much stickier than residential. So if you get a deal like that, you got that deal for a long time as long as you take care of them. And so my dad and I did an acquisition together, and he didn't really he thought it was a lot of money. We were growing at a healthy rate of 25% a year, so we were doubling every 3 years, which we love that. And he was kind of on his way out. As I mentioned, his dad snowbirded in Florida. My dad started going down to Florida in the winter. And so I was running the business. I was selling all the accounts. And it occurred to me, my buddies were telling me, because I didn't earn a lot. My dad never paid me a sales commission. I'd get an annual increase in my salary, probably $8,000 to $9,000 a year, which was at that time was a nice jump. To make an additional $8,000 each year, we were growing by 25%. I was doing most of the sales, but never a sales commission. Which that was just I don't know why my dad didn't do that. I would have even sold more accounts if he would have paid me on the deal.
Probably just didn't know.
Yeah, he was old school, man. My grandpa was the entrepreneur. My dad was the doer. So it was just he was really good at what he did. He pioneered the quarterly service in the late 90s in our area. Nobody did quarterly. We were the first company to do it. But anyway, my buddies were telling me, you're selling hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of deals a year for your dad, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, you're not making a lot of extra money from it. You're getting an increase in wage once a year. He goes, so you're going to have to turn around when your dad, retires and buy these accounts that you're cold calling and door knocking back from your dad, or at least 70% of the deal back. And so that was the reality that I faced. I was selling all the accounts, and I knew I would have to buy them off my dad. My dad needed money to retire. And it was like either I, continue to do so and I get my increase each year. And obviously I was getting a new vehicle. I mean, there were benefits for me too. Don't get me wrong. I was getting newer things. The company was growing. We were getting recognized. But eventually I did do exactly that. In 2021, actually, at the end of 2019, my dad and I kind of sat down and said, "Hey, you want to always retire at 60. I'm growing this business. I'd like to have an opportunity at taking it to the next level. You don't want to go very fast. Like I mentioned, we were in this acquisition deal that he didn't really like. And I can remember when we were with the bank and we were writing a check for almost $500,000, and my dad was the majority owner, so his name was first, and then my name was second on the note, and he signed the check, and he looked over at me, and we were sitting with the president of this small bank, and he did it right in front of the president, but he looked over at me and said, I hope you know what the fuck you're doing. And it was like, okay, thanks for the confidence, Dad. Thanks for the reassurance. In acquiring this business, because I was the one that wanted to acquire the business. I wanted those accounts. I wanted to expand, and it made sense for me to do that. But that's kind of our relationship in a nutshell, right? I want to go big and go fast. He wants to go real steady. Doesn't want to get too big. Doesn't want to be stressed out. Doesn't want to deal with more and more employees, more and more insurance. And so that was the dynamic we had. Eventually, we came to an agreement that it's time for him to sell me the business. And so I ended up we did an evaluation. We got a couple of accountants to sit down to look at our business, an attorney. We created a holding company that acquired his and our shares. And then that way I could deduct my payments to my dad. Eventually I had 2 payments a month for 20 years was his buyout. And I get to deduct on my tax return my payments to him as a consulting fee, essentially, which was very strategic. So I get the benefit of that. And so I took over in 2021 as sole owner of our business. And once my dad got out of the way, we doubled every year and have been ever since in size. And it was really awesome to be able to do that and pursue acquisitions without having to ask his permission, to want to grow and spend more money on marketing without asking for his permission to do so, hiring more employees so we could scale, getting newer vehicles, all the things that you need to do to build a successful company. That's what we started doing.
That's awesome. So where's your first branch outside of Chicago? Where do you go?
Yeah, so we're located, our corporate headquarters is in Dixon, Illinois. It's hometown of Ronald Reagan and Rita Crunwell, actually.
That's cool.
Rita Crunwell embezzled $55 million out of the city government. We're known for those 2 things. Nice. And obviously everybody knows Ronald Reagan, which we're much proud of in Dixon. But yeah, that's where our corporate headquarters is. That's where we started and evolved in our backyard. I moved to a town, like I mentioned, an hour east of Dixon. I'm in Sycamore, Illinois, which is not far from Northern Illinois University. Like I mentioned, we're about an hour from O'Hare Airport, an hour to downtown. So it's a great location, tied right next to the suburbs. And that's where we started expanding more so into Chicago. And in 2021, Rise Pest Control had a branch in the suburbs. Rise had a bunch of branches. They ended up selling the majority of their branches to Greenix, but I was able to acquire their Chicago branch. And it was a really interesting experience. It was a brokered deal. Shandon Cole actually brokered that deal. A lot of the pest control folks know Shandon. And I got that. I think we bought like 500 quarterlies. And we did it was like 80 cents on the dollar at the time, which it fit right into our footprint of what we wanted. And, I remember having conversations with folks in the industry about doing that deal and spending the money and going to get, money from the bank or whatever, going cash broke to get this kind of acquisition. And I remember talking specifically to a few of my peers in the industry, and they're like, does doing this deal line up with your goals? And the answer for me obviously was yes. So does doing this deal get you closer to where you want to be in 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years? Yes, the answer is yes. Then what are you worried about? Do that deal, go all in on it, figure out how to finance it, don't look back. And that advice, I've been making decisions with that advice in mind for the last 7 years. And it's just really good advice. If doing something aligns up with your goals, I think you should do it. If it doesn't, run from it. And that's what we started doing. We've ultimately done 10 acquisitions since 2019. We've expanded into several new states, Wisconsin, Iowa. We're currently right around 25,000 active recurring customers amongst our 4 branches. we're excited to announce we're the largest privately held pest control firm in the state of Illinois. We're going to crack into the top 100. I would assume it's not. It's kind of it's unofficially official. We're waiting for that to come out, but we did 11 million in revenue. The 100 on the year, number 100 last year's top 100 was like 8 million.
Yeah, it was like 7.4, I think.
Yeah, so I'd hope we'd be somewhere between 80 and 100 at 11. And I'm sure you know that's an exciting thing to be able to share with your employees that you are one of PCT's top 100 based on revenue in North America. So we're excited about that. It's been a target of mine since I started and took over from my dad, and now we're just all gas, no brakes. And you know, your 12th million is actually easier than your first million.
That's for sure.
And so we're excited.
Cool. And then you started opening some more branches and took on some partners. Why did you decide to do that? What does that look like?
Yeah, so the partnerships are interesting. Like, I was kind of spreading myself thin. I had an opportunity to acquire a company in Iowa, and we did that. And I needed somebody to drive that area. I'm in the Chicagoland, right? That's 2 hours from me. I can't go knock doors, you know, in Chicago and in Iowa. I can't cold call in Chicago and in Iowa. I mean, I can, but it gets to a point where you're building something. You need somebody else to take some responsibility, somebody that's motivated, that wants an opportunity. And so I brought a partner into Iowa, somebody that was going to be the kind of the branch manager, somebody driving that business, an operator. And so I found my brother-in-law, believe it or not, he was in law enforcement. He took his pension and then bought 20% of my company in Iowa that I had, and is now, you know, kind of the operating partner in Iowa. And so I think partnerships are very crucial, you know, picking the right partners. And, you know, the number one reason is like, do you need somebody else, either a skill set you don't have that they have, right? Or you need somebody to share the burden of what you're carrying, because you can't be in two places at once. And so assigning people that have some equity to an area to take it and essentially run with it, it was my mentality. You know, and so that's why I started doing that. I did it in the state of Wisconsin. I acquired a business in Wisconsin. I ran door to door out there myself, built up a nice $500,000-$600,000 business in that area, but needed a partner now to take that branch and like oversee it and make sure they're you know, taking care of it on the day-to-day level, but also trying to grow it, and having that equity and that skin in the game just makes it so much easier. So I essentially started giving people that were working with me an opportunity. My partner in Wisconsin is one of my best friends. He was in my wedding when I was 19. He's been working for us since, you know, we were in high school together. He had some money that he came into. All of my partners have bought in, you know, so I've given them we did a fair evaluation, what we thought the branch was worth. And they bought in, and then we assigned roles based on what skill set they had. And it's worked out really well for me. You know, my cousin's my operating partner down in Springfield, Illinois. I mentioned my best friend in Wisconsin, my brother-in-law in Iowa. My brother is my regional manager. He also has some points in Iowa and Springfield. He's been by my side, you know, since the very beginning. And to be honest, my brother never got any equity. When my dad sold in 21, my brother was up and coming. He was our top producer. He was our top producer on the tech side. So he was running, you know, $350K in production on the service side a year. But he wasn't really selling accounts. He didn't really have that skill set, but he was really good at servicing. He was developing a skill in managing and building rapport with our employees. But my dad told me, which I thought was super fair, you know, and that's exactly what I wanted. He said, if your brother's going to have any ownership in in this company, Chase, it's going to be because you decided to give it to him. And I'm going to give you the option. You're going to buy me out for my remainder 70. And so that's worked out well. But so bringing Devin in and you're having him, you know, have some points, you know, he earned it. He's been by my side for a very long time. And so now he helps me run the businesses, and he's ultimately in charge of my call center that has all my managers and my CSRs, and, you know, deals with all the drama of the day-to-day of that, which allows me to focus on the bigger picture.
Yeah, that's cool. And then obviously we talked a little bit, or you mentioned door-to-door a little bit. How do you find the door-to-door space? How did you learn how to do it?
Yeah, it came second when I moved to Sycamore from Dixon. Right, it's an hour east. It's a much bigger market. They were Active was there, EcoShield, Greenix, Point, Hawks. All these guys were coming into my neighborhood. I lived in a subdivision where, you know, door-to-door reps love those areas. And so I remember having a sales rep knock my door and, you know, try to sell me pest control, and I was blown away how, you know, he's really, really sharp, really good. I just felt, you know, hey, if these guys are out here doing this in my backyard, I got to get out there and do it too. because I don't want them coming in here taking my customers. And so coming from the commercial side of cold calling, door to door was relatively an easy transition. I just felt it was necessary to do. I knew it was a big part of the fastest growing companies because I was at that time reading about Lenny Gray, and there was some other platforms online, Door to Door University, That Knock Life. So I learned about it all in real time. It was like happening right in front of me, and I'm like, I got to get a piece of this.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what I did. I just went out and did it.
Yeah. Where did you learn from? YouTube University, like me?
No, so I did door to door. I did D2D University with Sam Taggart's platform.
I did too, yeah.
At that time, I think Josh Suningo was, with a lot of he had just came off his I don't know if that big year he had, but there was Mitch Matthews from Anthem Pest Control. He was the NFL player that went into Pest and kind of crushed it on the doors.
Yeah, I think he sold 1,000 accounts his first year.
Yep, and so it was like, okay, these guys can do it, I can do it too. And so I would run my, at this time I was in a new market. I was selling accounts. I was servicing a lot of the accounts I sold because we didn't have a technician there yet because everybody was back, in Dixon where we started. And so I was building the route up, doing like 8 to 12 accounts a day. I'd come home for dinner and then go back out and knock doors from like 5 to dark. And I would sell 3 or 4 deals. I would service them in the morning. And then I was like, man, I got to get it back on the doors. This is so much more productive for me to be selling 3 to 4 deals or 4 to 6 deals. I never really did a full summer because I was always caught up in servicing and running the business too. But I think my best summer, I think I sold 350 accounts, and that was doing it and servicing a lot of it. It wasn't a full 6 days a week, 3-4 months. Fast forward, we did take a team out to Iowa a couple years ago where I led the team. It was my business partner, it was myself, it was it was 2 of our top selling technicians that we took out of the truck, taught them how to do door to door, and did what we called an 8-week blitz, where we specifically went into an area, knocked Monday through Friday, and our goal was to put on, I think it was 400 accounts for $200,000 revenue in 8 weeks. And we did that in 6 weeks with this group. And it was interesting to see these technicians that knew nothing about sales or door to door, but we could teach them a little bit about it based on my experiences. And they were out selling 3 to 4 a day. And we had several days where they were selling 6 to 8, and they knew pest control because they were service techs. But they were also motivated to sell. They wanted to make more. And we did it. It was a lot of fun. I was with those guys for 6, 7 weeks, 8 weeks. And we were doing our trainings in the morning. We went out and we did something really unique in our branch out in Iowa. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Again, we have the same background, like same thing. Like almost to a T, dude. Like I learned from Sam, joined his DDU program, hired them as consultants the next year. They came in and taught me how to sell.
Yeah, the Mormons out in Utah tell me you and I are rare breeds, man. That know how to operate pest control companies, can go out and do the door to door.
Yeah, and I come from the space. You didn't come from the space, so I was like doing the same thing. I didn't know this, dude. For real, I was knocking doors by 7 a.m. because I didn't know the schedule. But I was selling 3 accounts by 11 o'clock because everyone was home. I'm like, oh, this is pretty easy.
Well, post-COVID, right? All that changed. I mean, it was like your power hours like 4 to 8. But now it's like 10 to 2, man. Everybody's home. You're going to get an opportunity to sell so much more now that everybody's working remote.
And that's what happened to me is like we got shut down in Michigan during COVID, so I couldn't work here. So I just went to Wisconsin. We could work there. So I just started knocking doors during COVID, and everyone was home. It was good. Like you said, it's like right time, right place for sure. Like God was looking over me. My back was against the wall. I had to figure it out, And so that's just how I started too. I was just selling the accounts, servicing either that day or the next day. I said I'd be selling by 7 a.m., servicing by 11, servicing those accounts, and just get back on the doors. And I did that for like a full year. I got super lucky. The first account that I ever sold, first door I ever knocked, I should say, I sold. Lady just, their dog was allergic to wasp nest, and they had a ground wasp nest in the back. I was able to take care of that for us. It was like the very first door that I knocked, I sold. And I was like, okay, I can do this. I think I sold like 2 more that day or whatever. I think my best day was like either 15 or 17 in a day. But again, that's kind of like you. I never got to knock a full summer. I was always doing like a little bit of everything. I was doing, running the company, running my old company, my lawn care company. I was knocking doors, servicing. I had the license at the time in Wisconsin, so I was doing most of the servicing. So I never really got a full summer. So I think I ended up selling like probably like 200 accounts or 300 accounts, whatever it was that first year. But yeah, it's similar background for sure. And then obviously I started training, recruiting a team. We've had like 3 guys now. 3 or 4 guys that are all golden doored. So apparently we did something right, So it's been good. I had a dude last year. last year, Jackson sold over 1,000 accounts. And I got this year sold over 1,000 accounts. So we have some killers in the group for sure. But again, no, like it was just out there figuring it out myself. Like, yeah, I brought in a consultant to teach me, but I mean, they can only teach you so much, and there's always just kind of got to figure it out, you know?
Well, I think the number one thing is you and I both want it, right? We wanted it at a young age. And so, like, if you're a pest control owner and you're listening to this and you want to become a millionaire through pest control, you have to want it, number one. Number two, you're going to have to go out and do it. Nobody's going to come to your door and make it happen for you. You have to do it. You have to figure out how to knock a door. You have to figure out how to cold call, how to drop into a business and get a contact. You know, it's very possible. And if I can do it.
If I can do it, anyone can do it.
Anybody can do it, but we wanted it. And I tell people ambition is priceless. I'm so thankful God gave me ambition. So thankful He gave me a desire to want more for myself, for my family, and for my ultimately my kids and my grandkids. And that's first and foremost, you got to want it, man. You got to want it.
I agree. I love that. I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. I don't want to go too much over time. I told you to be off here an hour. It's already been an hour. But let's talk about a little bit more door-to-door. A lot of people that are listening, let's say a lot, but maybe not a lot, but maybe a lot. They push back on door-to-door because they hear the bad things, right? What are your thoughts on door-to-door?
I love door-to-door. As long as I'm in pest control, it's always going to be a part of what my company does. I don't want to be solely dependent on door-to-door, but I want to sprinkle it in, and I want to remain competitive. My customers need to know that there are door-to-door companies that are out of the Chicagoland that are really, BYU students or U of I students. It doesn't matter where they're at, but they're selling pest control and they're not local. I'm here. I'm in the community. So in order for me to remain competitive, I got to get out there and let people know who I am and what I'm doing. Because Grant Cardone always talked about getting out of obscurity. If they don't know who you are, they're not going to buy from you. But when you show up on their doorstep and they tell a door-to-door guy, hey, I was just about ready to call somebody, I've got ants, and you actually say, well, that's exactly why I'm here, right? And you hear that all the time.
Every day.
Yeah, you do. And you'll get, if you knock a 7 to 8 hour shift, you're guaranteed to get somebody that's got some bugs that was just getting ready to call somebody or looking somebody up, right? So I think most of the haters don't know what they hate it because they've never done it.
They hate it because they see the bad things, right?
They see the bad things and they see all these other companies coming in and taking their business. Well, they were doing the same to me and they were doing the same to you. They were coming into our markets and taking our customers. Do something about it. Get out there and join them.
Push back a little bit, yep.
Not a bad thing in itself. There are some bad people in door-to-door, just like there's bad police officers,
any industry,
bad nurses, and bad school teachers.
Yep.
But I love door-to-door. It's a big part of what we're doing. We have teams in place. We're gonna have a team in Chicago this summer. We're gonna have a small team down in Southern Illinois. Like I mentioned, we're opening a branch from scratch. It'll be built on the back of door-to-door initially, but then we need to do digital, right? We need to make sure digital marketing is the foundation. The door-to-door is the foundation, then digital is going to be the way we scale it and grow it with a little bit of door-to-door blitz to give it some fuel.
I'll ask you the same question that everyone asked me. You have Chicago, which is a big market. Why not focus all your attention on Chicago instead of spreading yourself in other markets?
Man, I mean, that is a great question. And I'm starting to think more and more about Chicago. And I love Chicago. I'm a huge Chicago sports fan. I want to be a household name in Chicago. It's funny you asked me. That's my goal that's my vision now for SPCC. I want to be the eco shield of Chicago. I want to be the point pest control. A lot of folks know Jared Borg and what he built in Chicago. He's a friend of mine now. Why can't my company be that? The market's big enough. For us, it was acquisitions that were giving us an opportunity into some different markets.
Yeah. Just came across the right deal. Right
place, right time.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong way. I mean, you could have an $8 to $10 million branch in Chicago, or you could have 4 $2 million branches within 2-hour radius of that area. Then neither or is right or wrong. They're both really, really good. But my focus will be Chicago moving forward because I've identified that we've got sales teams, we've got systems and processes now where I can go from 6 to 7 million in a market and take it maybe from 12 to 15 just in Chicago. 20 million. I think Chicago could support a $30 million branch, but it's going to be a lot of work.
Which we're not afraid of. Cool. I want to wrap this up. Chase, a couple more questions. What does the future look like? What are the next 5 years?
That's the $100 million question, my friend. There's a lot going on for us. We have a lot of momentum. The way I see it, I'm going to keep driving the growth of the company until I can't anymore. I always wanted to grow by 25% so I could double every 3. We grew by 60% last year. We think we'll grow by another 45% this year based on marketing and door-to-door teams and things like that. I would love to. My goal 2-3 years ago, 5 years ago, is get it to $1 million a month, $1 million of charges coming into my business. We're there. We've got that. Now it's like, okay, let's get it to 20 million. Let's get it to 25. Why not take it from 25 to 100? The sky's the limit, but there's a lot to think about. The evaluations in our industry are nuts. People are given a lot of stock. The PE, the home service industry is on fire right now. For me, I want to grow it as fast as I can and go as far as I can before maybe I need to replace myself as either CEO or maybe, consider what other options there are. But the second part of that is I want to, like you mentioned, you have a growth mindset. You want to learn all the time. You want to be doing something different. Part of me wants to redefine myself in a whole nother sector. To say I can be a multi-brand entrepreneur, have success in the pest industry, but maybe come over here in public service and have success, or do something that's more passion-based that I want to do to help more people and impact more people. And so I'm asking God those questions. What do you have for me in the next 1 year, 3 year, 5 years? Ultimately, I want to walk in His will, and I want to find satisfaction and contentment in all the things that I'm doing. But that is a great question. I think there's a lot to unpack with that question.
Yeah, and it almost came full circle from where we started, because don't forget what your grandpa did. Stay focused.
Yep. No, that's it, man. That's what my dad tells me. When I tell my dad, hey, I might go back to school, I might go back to college and do X, Y, or Z. Well, you have a really good thing going, Chase, with this pest control. And I go, of course, I'm not gonna. I love pest control. I'm not gonna leave the industry, but yeah.
If you get a good CEO in place to replace you, then you can go do something else.
Yep.
I think you have the right mindset. I think you're headed in the right direction. I love what you're doing. It's badass. Like, people are like, oh, you guys are in the same markets. And we talked about this before. It's like, I could care less. Like, there's enough room for everyone. I want to see Chase win. He wants to see us win. Like, great. And this, like I said, this one connection could change the future for both of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that about this industry, because most of the A players have the same mindset. Let's help other people win. And it's why ultimately what you're doing on your podcast and the Pest Control Millionaire platform, which is amazing. If I'm 18, 19, getting into this industry and had the resources available to us now, we didn't have any of that when I was 18, 19.
No, not at all.
It's incredible what you're doing for the industry.
I appreciate it. Yeah. There was no YouTube University back in the day. We actually had to read the books, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Last question for you, and I'll let you wrap this thing up. What are you most proud of?
I think for me, I'm most proud that I was able to grow the business and create an economy based on my own output versus waiting for the phones to ring or waiting for 30 years to go by before I finally did $1 million or $2 million or $3 million. I think if you can create your own economy in your own business because you're going to put the effort in to grow it, that's something to be so proud of. And I am proud of that. I am proud that I laid the foundation of the first $5 million of revenue that our business did because of my efforts. Now, I know I can't do it. From 5 to 10, it's a whole nother playbook. And from 10 to 20, it's a different playbook. But the fact that I did it and I took my 20s where I had the most energy and my early 30s where I was focused and mature and decided to knock doors, cold call, grow a business, that business will pay me now for the rest of my life.
For sure.
And I'm super proud of that.
Love it. Well, good job. I'm proud of you too. It's cool. Again, Chase, you're a stud. I love what you're doing in the industry. You're a killer. I think people are going to love this podcast. I know I'm fired up right now. Like I was going to go crush the doors right now. Just so excited. But again, thanks for being with us today. Thanks for sharing your knowledge, expertise, and look forward to keeping up with you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Jonas. I appreciate the opportunity to share it.
Yeah, talk to you soon. Hey guys, thanks for listening to another episode of Pest Control Millionaire. We don't charge any money for the show, but the podcast isn't free. Please like and subscribe and give us a 5-star review in your favorite podcast app. This makes a huge difference for us. If you have any specific questions about your business or your personal life that you'd like answered by me or any of my podcast guests, please send an email to info@pestcontrolmillionaire.com. And if you want to get in touch with me about our marketing class, we do a live version every Thursday night. Check out our website at pestcontrolmillionaires.com. Thank you guys for listening. I'll see you guys in the next one.